The New York Times have faced internal upheaval since October 7th over their coverage of Israel's war in Gaza. But now it has emerged that the paper has instructed journalists to restrict the use of the terms genocide and ethnic cleansing and to avoid the phrase occupied territory when describing Palestinian land. Not only that, they have told journalists not to use the word Palestine except in very rare cases. This story is coming from The Intercept, who obtained a copy of the internal memo, which was first distributed to New York Times journalists in November. The memo also outlines that reporters shouldn't use the term refugee camps to describe areas of Gaza where displaced Palestinians are now being located after being expelled from other parts of Palestine during previous Israeli-Arab wars. The Intercept say this. The memo, written by Times Standards editor Susan Westling, international editor Philip Pan, and their deputies, quote, offers guidance about some terms and other issues we have grappled with since the start of the conflict in October. While the document is presented as an outline for maintaining objective journalistic principles in reporting on the Gaza war, several Times staffers told The Intercept that some of its contents show evidence of the paper's deference to Israeli narratives. One New York Times newsroom source who requested anonymity said this to The Intercept about the memo. I think it's the kind of thing that looks professional and logical if you have no knowledge of the historical context of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But if you do know, it will be clear how apologetic it is to Israel. On the memo's direction of the term occupied territories, it says this. When possible, avoid the term and be specific, e.g. Gaza, the West Bank, etc., as each has a slightly different status. So here they're referring to the fact that Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem are all considered to be occupied Palestinian territories in the eyes of the UN and most of the world. In relation to the term occupied territories being discouraged, an NYT staffer said this. You are basically taking the occupation out of the coverage, which is the actual core of the conflict. It's like, oh, let's not say occupation because it might make it look like we're justifying a terrorist attack. The memo also includes some advice about how to describe a one-sided war that's seen the number killed on one side grow to nearly 30 times more than those killed on the other. Quote, the nature of the conflict has led to inflammatory language and incendiary accusations on all sides. We should be very cautious about using such language, even in quotations. Our goal is to provide clear, accurate information, and heated language can often obscure rather than clarify the fact. Words like slaughter, massacre, and carnage often convey more emotion than information. Think hard before using them in our own voice. That advice minimizes the scale of death being imposed by Israel on Gaza and the manner in which it's being carried out. But it's also hypocritical. The Intercept's own analysis of articles written in the New York Times shows that between October 7th and November 24th last year, the paper has described Israelis being killed as a massacre on 53 occasions. Of the many, many times that Palestinians in Gaza have been killed, the New York Times has referred to a massacre just once. Remember, this is a war in which Israel has killed at least 15,000 children. And when it comes to using the word slaughter, the New York Times was happy to use it 22 times to refer to Israeli deaths, and just once for Palestinians.